Fake pandas. I never thought we'd see the day. And what's crazy is it's not even the first time this has happened, recently. So, I imagine some of you have probably seen this floating around because the story's gained a lot of steam. There is a zoo in China that has painted some chow chows to look like pandas to try and give visitors the sense that there's pandas there, even though it's just painted dogs. It was the perfect plan. They're nearly indistinguishable from real pandas. At least until they started panting and barking. Then it became clear it's not pandas. Now, the zoo is insisting, or at least they were, that they were rare panda dogs. Which obviously isn't a real thing that doesn't exist. A unicorn is more likely to exist than a fucking panda dog. I don't know why they thought they'd be able to pull that fast one over on anyone. And eventually they just folded saying, yeah, we just painted some chow chows to look like pandas. And what's crazy is they're not the only zoo to do this. It actually happened pretty recently as well at a different zoo.
The latest exhibit at this zoo in eastern China had visitors doing a double take. These pandas are really chow chow puppies, advertised as panda dogs, and social media can't get enough of them.
Look quickly, and there's a resemblance to the rare giant panda. Sort of.
But some zoogoers in China aren't happy about what they call a deception. According to Chinese state media, the zoo said it dyed the dogs black and white because they didn't have any pandas. A worker insisted visitors are not being misled and that the fuzzy chow chows are accurately described as dogs.
Not really, though. They're not panda dogs. They're chow chows that you've painted. That's like if I took a piece of my poop and colored it to look like a strawberry and then called it a strawberry. It doesn't make it a strawberry. Maybe it resembles one, kind of, but it's still wrong to call it a strawberry. They are chow chows. They are not panda dogs. There's no such thing. It is misleading and a deception. That's why you did it, to try and fool people into thinking you have like some panda cubs, even though they're just puppies. It's so silly. And it's not really like a good excuse or a good justification that you don't have any pandas, so this was the next best thing. Just don't fucking pretend you have pandas. Just say like, hey, we don't have any here. You know, like, this is just a dishonest way of trying to have your cake and eat it too. You don't have pandas, but you're pretending you have something comparable with these panda dogs. It is a deception. That's the whole point of it. It's also just super scummy and shady to do this. A whole point of a zoo is supposed to be educational and for conservation. This, you have just taken domesticated animals and painted them to be something that they're not and are trying to like parade them around like that. It's very weird. Now, a lot of people in both of these cases has pointed out that it's kind of cruel to do this to dogs, to dye their fur like that because it's bad for them. The zoo defended themselves by saying people dye their hair all the time, thus dogs can, and it's fine. I'm not knowledgeable enough on the subject. From the little bits of research I've done, at the very least, most places seem to agree that it's not the best for dogs' skin and fur to dye it different colors. But I feel like everyone should be able to agree that zoos doing this is very fucking stupid. Like, it is against what zoos are supposed to be about in the first place. It runs counter to the whole idea of, like, the purpose of a zoo. To paint chow chows and call them rare panda dogs. It's such a weird fucking lie to tell. It's not like these zoos were gonna go bankrupt if they didn't have pandas. Like, I know pandas are a huge draw to zoos in China, but it's not like every zoo that doesn't have them is forsaken, like a barren wasteland, so they had to just come up with this panda dog scheme. It kind of reminds me of that old skit. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Ham and Witch. Nope, that's definitely not what it was. It was Hamish and Andy. I'm sorry I fucked that name up so badly. It's been a while since I've seen this, but they dressed in gorilla costumes. They went to a zoo in the exhibit, and they were doing things like playing with remote control cars and riding a bike and shit like that. And zoogoers were convinced, like, holy shit, we're watching some of the most intelligent gorillas we've ever fucking seen. You know, like, it's kind of the same idea here, but with these zoos doing it unironically, not as a comedy sketch. But yeah, pretty fucking weird thing to lie about. Also, I saw another story today that I've got to talk about as well. It's another weird one. I don't know if this is the first time this has happened, but it's definitely the first time I've seen it. A robot just arrested somebody. Kind of. It's not what you're picturing. Like, I bet you're imagining, Chappie rolled up and put someone's hands behind their back while reading the Miranda rights. Not quite that. It's kind of like a battle bot mounting somebody, which led officers to arresting them. So the reason Tony Stark's little helper is here in the first place is because the suspect inside had fired some shots. One of them was aimed at officers. They eventually called in this bomb squad robot, who approaches the door ready to trick or treat with some tear gas, but the guy inside opens the door with a peekaboo maneuver and throws a bedsheet over it to try and stop the tear gas from deploying.
Standoff where multiple shots were fired and one person was injured. 39-year-old Felix De La Rosa was wanted for a parole violation. That's why officers tracked him to the hotel. But when he fired shots, they called in the Lubbock County SWAT team. At one point, we saw and heard him fire at a bomb squad robot. Take a listen.
The bedsheet didn't disable Wally. Instead, it just kept pushing forward, trying to get that tear gas inside. So the guy leaned out the window and shot it. So he puts a bullet in it, which also doesn't stop him. He just eats that bullet. This robot looks like something I would have made out of Kinects when I was like 12 years old. Honestly, it seems like less of a robot and more of a remote-controlled whatchamahoosit. This thing's not too dissimilar from what NASA's been sending to Mars, except this one, instead of like looking for extraterrestrial life, it's just looking for new ways to whoop some ass.
It sprayed tear gas into De La Rosa's hotel room. Initially, De La Rosa tried to fight the robot, even throwing sheets and what looked like towels at it, but that didn't stop the robot from deploying gas. We watched as De La Rosa crawled out of that window and onto the ground where the robot pinned him until officers took him into custody.
No one could have ever expected that robot was trained in Krav Maga. That was textbook takedown right there. I love that it's like holding the blinds gently as it like deploys tear gas, and then it sees its opportunity. It doesn't even let go of the blinds. It just turns around with the blinds, ripping the shit out of him while it climbs on top of the guy, literally mounting him like a World of Warcraft mount. In total, I think the standoff lasted something like 2 hours, and there were moments where he would come outside and like wave a Bible around before going back in. It was very odd, and one thing the Bible doesn't talk about is machines, and I'll tell you what, the machines are taking over. Now they can pin people down for arrests. Holy shit. I knew bomb squad robots were a thing. They have been for a long time. But I didn't know they were capable of, like, deploying tear gas and, like, taking down suspects. We're getting into the deep future now. I don't think RoboCop's too far away. I don't know how common it is for bots to be used in situations like this, but I guess I'll just keep my eye on it to see if this happens more frequently in the next couple of years or not. Anyway, though, I just wanted to talk about these two stories I looked at earlier today. That's really about it. See ya.